There's a strange silence that follows every war. Cities rebuild, soldiers return home, flags rise again. But beneath that illusion of peace, something darker always remains. A wound that never heals. A war that never really ends. People think war is about bullets, tanks, and borders. But if you look close enough, war is much older, much deeper. It's written in our DNA. It's the way humans have tried to survive and control. From the moment the first stone was thrown in anger, the war began. And since then, humanity has never really stopped fighting. Julius Caesar once said, "In war, events of importance are the result of trivial causes." And he was right. Most wars don't start because of something grand or noble. They start because of pride, fear, power, and sometimes just boredom. Think about it. Entire empires were built on the desire to be remembered, to dominate, to make others kneel and whisper their name with fear. The Roman Empire, for centuries, painted the world red with conquest. They didn't just fight to survive. They fought to prove a point, that they were gods among men. And for a while, the world believed it. But like every empire that rose in fire, Rome burned too. Not from foreign invaders, but from within. Corruption, greed, division. That's the thing about war. You can win the world and still lose your soul. Thousands of years later, the same story played again, just with bigger weapons and louder lies. World War I was called the war to end all wars. It didn't. In fact, it birthed the next one. Winston Churchill, who lived through the chaos, once said, "Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it." And humanity repeated it, faster and bloodier than ever before. World War II wasn't just fought in trenches. It was fought in mines. It was fought in laboratories. It was fought with propaganda that turned neighbors into enemies. When Hitler rose to power, he didn't just use guns. He used emotions. He made people believe they were chosen, that others were the reason for their pain. That's the deadliest weapon of all, in belief. And when the world finally watched Germany fall, when the mushroom clouds rose over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, everyone thought, this is it. Humanity has finally seen enough. But the truth? That was just the beginning of a new kind of war. No flags, no uniforms, no declarations, just quiet battles fought behind screens, policies, and systems. The Cold War, a war of intelligence, fear, and power, where no one fired first but everyone aimed. America and the Soviet Union didn't just build bombs. They built paranoia, nuclear stockpiles, spies, coded messages, satellites. It was like a global chess game played with human lives. And even when the Berlin Wall finally came down in 1989, the world didn't breathe easy, because war had simply evolved again. Now battles weren't fought on land. They were fought in economies, in technology, in information, and that's when the real shift happened. The war moved inside people's minds. Sun Tzu said, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." That's exactly what modern society became. A war without blood, but with manipulation. Today, the generals wear suits, not armor. The soldiers scroll feeds, not battlefields. The bullets, information, and the victims, attention. Every time you open your phone, someone is fighting for control of your mind. Companies, governments, influencers, they don't need to conquer land anymore. They just need to conquer your thoughts. And the craziest part? We volunteered for it. We built the weapons ourselves. The algorithms, the data trails, the endless dopamine loops. What used to be wars for land are now wars for time. Wars for identity. Wars for truth. The war never ended, it just got prettier. It got shinier. It became entertainment. Now when people talk about the next world war, they imagine nuclear bombs and soldiers. But the truth is, it's already happening. Right here, right now. Every single day you scroll, compare, argue, post, or perform. You're part of a global psychological war. And here's the scary thing. No one wins these wars. Everyone just gets tired, anxious, numb. Once kings sent men to die in deserts for glory. Now corporations send ads to make you buy a feeling. Once nations fought for borders. Now people fight for validation. The weapons have changed, but the wounds remain the same. When he finally stopped explaining himself to people, the world went silent. But in that silence, something louder than noise began to speak. Reality. He had disappeared, not because he hated people, but because he realized they could never understand the storms that built him. The same people who once laughed at his dreams were now too busy talking. about why he vanished, but he wasn't gone. He was evolving. Days turned into weeks, and the man who once sought validation now sought progress, no longer glued to screens waiting for notifications. He woke up every day with a plan, not to prove but to prepare. The grind became his therapy. The gym became his temple. Books replaced gossip. And the mirror became his only competition. In the end, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Aristotle. That quote hung on his wall, written with a black marker. He didn't just read it, he lived it. He didn't post his workouts. He just did them. He didn't announce his goals. He quietly built them. He didn't chase motivation. He replaced it with discipline, because motivation fades when life hits hard. But discipline stands like a mountain, unshaken, untouched, unmoved. He learned what few ever understand, that success isn't born in public. It's created in dark rooms behind closed doors when no one is watching. The world only sees the performance. They never see the rehearsals. And so he rehearsed every single day. His mornings were no longer lazy scrolls through social media. They started with ice-cold water, a notebook, and a list of goals. Every night he'd review his progress and ask one question. Did I become 1% better today? Sometimes the answer was no. And that's what made him stronger. He didn't run from failure anymore. He studied it, dissected it. Because every failure, every rejection, every quiet night of doubt was just a chapter in the book of his evolution. He studied people who had mastered silence. He read about Leonardo da Vinci, who disappeared for years only to return with the Mona Lisa. He read Nietzsche, who said, "The man who has a why to live can bear almost any how." He learned that disappearing wasn't an escape. It was strategy. The rebuilding. People think rebirth happens suddenly, but it doesn't. It happens in micro moments, when you choose to say no, when you choose to stay in, when you choose to grind even when nobody cares. He stopped looking for shortcuts. He understood that real growth requires discomfort. When others sought comfort, he sought chaos, because he knew comfort kills ambition. He trained his mind to be comfortable being uncomfortable. He learned what Stoics taught, to endure without complaint, to focus only on what can be controlled. Every morning before dawn, he'd remind himself of Marcus Aurelius's words. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. And he became one. Slowly, the noise of the world began to fade. He didn't chase people anymore. He didn't explain his absence. He didn't ask for attention. He realized, attention is given to those who no longer seek it. His phone stayed silent, but his mind got loud. He reprogrammed his thinking brick by brick. He learned to enjoy being unknown. He found peace in invisibility. Because being unseen gives freedom. Freedom to fail. Freedom to experiment. Freedom to rebuild without judgment. And that's what he did. He built himself piece by piece. From his body to his habits to his mind to his environment. He cleaned his space, threw away clutter, deleted toxic people, and unfollowed everyone who drained his energy. He understood energy is currency. Spend it wisely. You will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks. Winston Churchill. So he stopped replying. He stopped explaining. He just worked. The dark nights. But let's be honest, it wasn't pretty. The nights were long. The silence was heavy. There were moments when he questioned everything. Moments when his mind whispered, maybe this isn't working. Maybe you're wasting time. But that's the trick of the mind. It hates transformation because transformation requires pain. He learned that discipline is a war between your present self and your future self. And he wasn't fighting for today anymore. He was fighting for who he would be 5 years later. Every time he wanted to quit, he'd look at the notebook on his desk. The first page had 3 words, prove them wrong. He didn't know who them was anymore. Maybe his past self, maybe the world, maybe both. But that was enough to keep going, and he did. He began mastering small things, waking up on time, keeping promises, finishing books, saving money, staying consistent. He discovered what James Clear meant when he wrote in Atomic Habits. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. So he built systems, a structure for his days, a purpose for his nights. He didn't need anyone's validation now, because the man who walks alone learns faster than the man who walks for applause. The transformation, 1 year later, everything changed. Not because of luck, not because of timing, but because of consistency and that boring, painful, daily consistency that no one talks about. He was unrecognizable, physically stronger, mentally sharper, emotionally stable. His circle was smaller, but his focus was larger. He no longer looked for happiness. He built it through progress. He had turned loneliness into his laboratory. And in that lab, he created the best version of himself. He learned what Epictetus once said: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. He had done exactly that. Now, when he walked into a room, people felt it. Not because he spoke louder, but because his silence carried weight. The same people who once ignored him now whispered his name. The same ones who thought he failed now watched him glow. He didn't announce his comeback. He simply showed up better than ever. Because silence makes noise when you return different. The comeback. When he finally reappeared, he wasn't looking for attention. He was looking for alignment. He didn't care to be seen. He cared to be understood. He wasn't seeking revenge. He was seeking results. And the results spoke louder than any post, story, or speech. The transformation was so powerful that even his absence made sense now. People finally realized disappearing was never about leaving them. It was about finding himself. He became the man who no longer needed to prove anything. He didn't chase, he attracted. He didn't demand, he commanded. Because energy doesn't lie. The same people who once doubted him now studied him. The ones who called him lost now called him wise. He smiled, not out of arrogance, but gratitude, because he finally understood why he had to go through the darkness. As Carl Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. He had made his darkness conscious, and from it he built light. The philosophy of disappearance. When he looked back, he realized the act of disappearing is the most honest thing a person can do. It's not about cutting people off. It's about cutting distractions off. It's not about running away. It's about running inward. Because when you disappear, you face your raw self without filters, without applause, without escape. And that's where truth lives. The truth that you don't need to post to progress. The truth that you don't need noise to grow. The truth that you don't owe explanations to anyone except your future self. He became addicted to progress, not validation. And that addiction built his empire. As Naval Ravikant said, play long-term games with long-term people. He applied that to everything. His habits, his work, his mindset. He stopped chasing trends and started chasing timelessness. Because real success isn't fast, it's forever. And he had finally built something forever, himself. The return of the unrecognizable. When he came back, it wasn't to show off. It was to show what's possible. He carried a calmness that power can't buy and confidence that silence can't fake. His presence didn't need an introduction, it was felt. He had become the quiet storm. He lived by one final truth. Work hard in silence. Let success make the noise. Frank Ocean. And his success roared. Not in luxury or fame, but in peace. The peace that comes when you master yourself. He was no longer the boy who disappeared. He was the man who returned, rebuilt, refined, reborn. And in his story lies a reminder for every soul feeling lost right now. Sometimes disappearing isn't about hiding from the world. It's about preparing to conquer it. He had returned. But this time, not to prove anything, only to show that silence can build something louder than fame. Power. The same streets that once watched him walk away in defeat, now saw him return with a calm face and an unshakable energy. There was something about him, the way he moved, the way he spoke less, the way his eyes didn't look for approval anymore. He had become the kind of man who didn't need to be noticed to be felt. He had become presence itself. It's strange how people notice absence more than presence. But his absence had made them aware of what he had become. The man who used to talk about dreams was now living them. The one who used to chase success was now being chased by it. But this wasn't luck. This was years of disappearing into the dark, learning lessons most people avoid. He didn't owe anyone revenge. His revenge was growth. He didn't owe anyone explanation. His explanation was transformation. Success is not to be pursued. It is to be attracted by the person you become. Jim Rohn. He had become that person, the unseen foundation. Behind his success was a foundation no one saw. the cold mornings, the rejected emails, the sleepless nights, the failed attempts, the endless reading. He knew that real transformation doesn't begin when you win. It begins when you stop lying to yourself. He faced his flaws brutally. He wrote them down, every weakness, every mistake, every toxic habit, and then declared war on them. He once read Sun Tzu's words from The Art of War. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. He applied that not to war, but to himself. He studied his fears the way warriors studied their enemies. Every doubt, every insecurity, and he dissected it. Because he realized the real war is never outside. It's inside. And whoever wins that war rules everything. The kingdom within. He started calling it the kingdom. Not a physical one, but a mental one. Kingdom built on routines, principles, and peace. Every decision he made had to serve that kingdom. If it didn't protect his peace, it didn't belong there. He guarded his mind like a fortress. He filtered his company, his content, even his thoughts. He understood what Seneca meant when he wrote, "You become what you give your attention to." And his attention was now his weapon. He used to waste it on people who never cared. Now he invested it in habits that built empires. He no longer consumed. He created. He no longer waited. He acted. He no longer begged for peace. He built it. That's when everything changed. The outside world began to mirror his inside world. Opportunities came naturally. People respected him without him asking. Because when you fix your inner world, your outer world adjusts itself. The rise of impact. One evening, while walking home, a stranger recognized him. "Hey, you're that guy who used to post those motivational things, right? Where did you go?" He smiled. "To build what I was posting about." That night he realized something powerful. Silence teaches louder than words. People notice consistency. People feel energy. They see change before they hear it. So he decided to give back. Not by preaching, but by showing. He started mentoring quietly. No flashy programs. No self-help nonsense. Just real talk. He told people the truth. Stop waiting for motivation. Nobody's coming to save you. Build yourself. His raw honesty started spreading like wildfire. People listened because he wasn't selling dreams. He was living one. He didn't call himself a coach. He was a mirror, showing people who they could become if they stopped running from themselves. The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. Ralph Waldo Emerson. That became the message behind everything he did. The war on comfort. As his circle grew, he noticed something. Everyone wanted success, but no one wanted the pain that comes with it. He began telling them the same thing he once told himself. Comfort is a slow death. Discipline is painful, but it's freedom disguised as suffering. He taught through stories. The story of Michael Jordan, who was cut from his high school team but turned that pain into the fire that built a legacy. The story of Thomas Edison, who failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb and said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." The story of Steve Jobs, who was fired from his own company but came back to revolutionize technology. And the story of himself, the man who disappeared when everyone mocked him and reappeared when no one could touch him. These stories weren't fiction. They were proof that isolation is not weakness, it's incubation. And every great person the world admires today was once invisible. The philosophy of stillness. He built his days around something he called the law of stillness. Every morning before sunrise, he sat in silence. No phone, no sound, just breath. Because he realized that silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. In stillness, the world resets. Ryan Holiday from Stillness is the Key. This practice changed everything. He began making decisions with clarity, not emotion. He didn't react to hate. He observed it. He didn't rush. He moved with precision. He became the eye of the storm, calm while everything around him spun. And people started noticing that peace, the kind that couldn't be bought, couldn't be faked, couldn't be shaken. He wasn't loud anymore. He was certain, the turning point. Then came the call. An old friend, the same one who once laughed at his goals, reached out. "Bro, what happened to you? You're different now." He smiled and said, "I stopped being available for every noise." That's all. That one line became his life's summary. He wasn't available for distractions. He wasn't available for drama. He wasn't available for negativity. He was available only for growth, peace, and purpose. That's what made him unstoppable. He knew the world was addicted to attention, but he was addicted to progress. While others chased followers, he chased freedom. While others sought fame, he sought fulfillment. And that difference, that silent difference, made him powerful beyond measure. The legacy, now years later when people mention his name, they don't talk about fame or wealth. They talk about discipline. They talk about how he made them change their lives without even trying. He became a symbol, not of perfection, but of progress, because he had done what most fear to do. He had gone into the dark and built his light from nothing. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Joseph Campbell. And he had entered that cave willingly. His message became simple, almost poetic. Disappear when you must. Rebuild when you can. Return when you're ready. People asked him, "How do I know when I'm ready to come back?" He'd smile and say, "When you no longer need the world's applause to keep going." That's the sign of mastery. The truth. The truth is, the man didn't become successful by accident. He became successful by subtraction. He removed everything that wasn't aligned. People, habits, doubts. He realized that real growth isn't adding more. It's removing what blocks you. He once read something that stuck forever. When nothing is left to take away, perfection remains. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. That's what he did. He stripped away every unnecessary layer until only truth remained. Now his silence was no longer escape. It was command. He didn't need to shout his worth. His presence said it all. He didn't tell people to change. His energy made them want to. He had become living proof that disappearing doesn't end you. It defines you. And if you're listening to this right now, it's your turn. Stop waiting for permission. Stop explaining your silence. Disappear for a while. Delete the noise. Cut the distractions. Go to war with your weaknesses. Build the person you keep imagining. Because when you return, the same world that once ignored you will have no choice but to respect you. This isn't about ego. This is about evolution. And remember, he who controls himself controls the world. Unknown. So take that control. Disappear, rebuild, return unrecognizable. That's how legends are made. He had conquered everything he once dreamed of. But now he was staring at the view from the top and realizing something most people never do. That the higher you climb, the quieter it gets. The noise that once surrounded him, the doubters, the critics, the friends who vanished and had all faded into echoes. He had outgrown them all. And yet there was something inside him whispered, "Now what?" Because success doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like silence. And for the first time in years, that silence didn't scare him. It felt like home. He had built everything they said he couldn't. And still, he wasn't chasing applause anymore. He was chasing meaning. The cars, the money, the recognition, they were just shadows of effort. But the real reward? It was the person he had become. Calm, wise, centered, unbreakable. He had learned what most people never will. That the goal was never to prove them wrong. It was to prove himself right. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Those words hit him one night while driving through an empty road, headlights cutting through the dark. He realized the journey wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who he always was, before the world told him who to be. He started talking less again, not because he had nothing to say, but because wisdom doesn't shout. He had learned to find joy in simplicity, in quiet mornings, black coffee, the sound of rain on windows. The same man who once fought to be seen now found peace in being invisible again. But this time it was different. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was guarding. He was guarding his energy, his peace, and the kingdom he built inside. They began calling him a mentor. People sought him out. Not for fame, not for success, but for truth. And when they asked, "How did you do it?" he smiled and said, "I didn't chase success. I chased better days, and better days built me." He started teaching not from a stage, but from experience. He told stories that hit like thunder but healed like rain. Stories about pain, loss, growth, and the quiet art of rebuilding your soul. Because he knew that what most people need isn't advice, it's example. They don't want motivation, they want proof that change is possible. And he had become living proof. The return of silence. There was a moment, one morning, Before sunrise, when he stood by the window watching the city sleep, the lights flickered below like memories fading in distance, and he whispered to himself, "I finally understand." He understood that life isn't about becoming unstoppable. It's about learning when to stop, when to pause, when to breathe, when to simply exist. He thought about the boy he once was, the one who used to overthink everything, who used to chase everyone's approval. He wished he could meet that boy now and say, "You made it. Not because you became rich or famous, but because you found peace." The world cycle, time moved differently for him now. He started seeing life as a series of cycles. People rise, they fall, they rise again. The world burns and then it heals. The young become wise and the wise become silent. He used to think disappearing was the end of everything. Now he saw it was the beginning of all things. Just like seasons, humans need winters, moments of stillness and reflection before spring blooms again. He had simply lived his winter, and his spring was eternal. The legacy beyond words. He didn't need to tell people what legacy he wanted to leave. He lived it through every action, every choice, every word left unsaid. He once read Marcus Aurelius and never forgot this line: "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That became his quiet mission, not to inspire, not to motivate, but to embody. And without realizing it, his story started spreading, from one person to another, like a spark carried by the wind. People started using his words as anchors, his silence as strength, his story as proof that transformation is possible, no matter how lost you are. The return of faith. There came a time when he stopped trying to control everything. He realized that some battles aren't meant to be fought. They're meant to be understood. He found peace in surrender, not as defeat, but as trust. He trusted the universe, God, fate, whatever name you give it, because he finally saw that everything that broke him was actually building him. Every failure, every heartbreak, every lonely night was a brick in the empire of his soul. He stopped questioning why me and started whispering thank you, because gratitude is the final stage of strength. Not when life gives you everything, but when you love it even when it doesn't. Years later, when people talked about him, they didn't just say he was successful. They said he was different, grounded, kind still. And that was the goal all along. Not to be known, but to be felt. Character is how you treat those who can do nothing for you. He never forgot that. He treated the janitor the same way he treated the CEO. He smiled at strangers like he knew their pain, because he did. He had walked through hell and came back carrying light. And that light became his legacy, the ending that isn't won. Now, as he walks again through those same streets where his journey began, he no longer feels like the same man, because he isn't. He walks with peace in his eyes, silence in his soul, and power in his steps. He doesn't seek validation. He radiates it. He doesn't need to talk, his energy speaks for him. And that's when you realize, the story was never about disappearing. It was about becoming. Every great soul vanishes for a while, but when they return, they don't come back to prove. They come back to lead. If you've listened this far, maybe you needed this reminder. Maybe you're in your disappearing phase right now. Maybe everything feels quiet, empty, and slow. But remember, this is your building season. Don't rush it. Don't hate it. Don't fight it. Because one day you'll look back and realize, the silence was never punishment. It was preparation. And when that day comes, you'll walk out into the world like he did. Calm, ready, and unrecognizable. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So if this story reached you, if it spoke to something deep inside you, then you're not here by accident. This channel is where stories like this live. Stories that remind you who you are and what you're meant to become. Hit subscribe. Not for me, but for the part of you that refuses to stay average. Because one day you'll disappear too. And when you come back, the world won't even recognize you.